Have you ever stood at the baggage carousel watching bag after bag slide past, heart racing a little, and wondered, what if everything I believe about checked luggage is just wrong? Because here's the uncomfortable truth: most travelers never hear airlines don't lie to you loudly. They whisper half-truths so often that eventually you repeat them yourself, and after spending years planning trips, watching airports from behind the scenes, working alongside security staff, and listening to frustrated passengers at check-in counters, I can tell you this with confidence: a lot of what you think you know about checked bags is pure myth. And those myths cost travelers time, money, and peace of mind every single day. Starting with the big one, airlines love that checking a bag is safer than carrying it on, when in reality, checked bags pass through more hands, more conveyor belts, more loading zones, more dark corners of the airport than your carry-on ever will. And every extra touch is a risk they never mention. Because if people truly understood how many transfer points a checked bag goes through, fewer would pay those fees so easily. And then there's the myth that baggage handlers don't open bags, which sounds comforting but ignores the reality of random inspections, broken locks, torn zippers, and rushed handling under impossible time pressure. Not because workers are careless, but because airports run on speed, not gentleness. And another myth that drives me crazy is the idea that putting a fragile sticker on your bag somehow protects it, when most handlers will tell you quietly that fragile tags often mean nothing at all during peak hours, when hundreds of bags must move in minutes and the system simply can't slow down for your souvenirs. And then there's the belief that airlines will automatically compensate you fairly if your bag is delayed or damaged, which sounds nice in theory, but in practice often turns into paperwork, deadlines you didn't know existed, fine print you never read, and reimbursements that barely cover the inconvenience, let alone the emotional stress of landing in a foreign city with nothing but the clothes on your back. And speaking of delays, many travelers still believe that if their bag is delayed, it must be lost somewhere far away, when most of the time it's sitting in the same airport, stuck behind a missed scan or loaded onto the next flight because your connection was too tight. A detail airlines rarely explained unless you ask the right questions. And here's another quiet myth: that all checked bags are treated equally. Because in reality, your bag's fate can change based on aircraft type, connection length, destination airport, weather, staffing levels, and even the time of day you fly, with late-night arrivals statistically facing more baggage delays simply because fewer staff are working behind the scenes. And then there's the myth that expensive luggage equals better protection, which is comforting but misleading. Because I've seen premium hardshell cases crack just as easily as budget ones when pressure hits at the wrong angle, while some soft bags survive because they flex instead of fight. And yet, airlines rarely talk about bag design because selling you confidence is easier than explaining physics. And another popular belief is that airline tracking apps guarantee you'll always know where your bag is. But these systems rely on scans that don't always happen, especially during rushed transfers, meaning your app might say loaded while your bag is still waiting on the tarmac. And then there's the dangerous myth that locking your bag makes it theft-proof, when in reality, certain locks only slow, honest people down. And forced entries happen quietly, quickly, and without obvious damage, which is why experienced travelers rely more on smart packing than blind trust. And one myth that frustrates airport security professionals is the idea that checked bags aren't inspected as thoroughly as carry-ons, when in fact, advanced scanning systems examine checked luggage in ways passengers never see, sometimes triggering manual checks that delay bags while flights continue on schedule without them. And then there's the belief that airlines intentionally lose bags, which sounds dramatic but misses the real issue: miscommunication between systems, human error under pressure, and outdated infrastructure in some airports cause most problems, not malice. Yet airlines benefit from letting frustration stay vague instead of transparent. And another myth airlines quietly encourage is that checking a bag saves time at security, which might be true at the checkpoint, but ignores the time you lose waiting at baggage claim, especially after long international flights when everyone just wants to go home. And finally, there's the most damaging myth of all, that travelers have no control over what happens to their checked bag, when the truth is there are small, powerful choices that dramatically reduce risk, like choosing flights with longer connections, avoiding last departures of the day, removing old baggage tags, packing essentials and carry-ons, photographing your bag before check-in, knowing your airline's claim rules before you need them, and understanding that airports are systems, not villains, and systems respond best to informed travelers, not hopeful ones. So the next time you roll your suitcase toward the check-in counter, pause for a second, because believing these myths doesn't make travel easier. It makes you unprepared, and preparation, not luck, is what separates smooth journeys from stressful ones, especially in today's crowded, fast-moving airports where checked bags are treated like numbers unless you know how to protect yours. And that's the kind of travel wisdom airlines don't advertise, but seasoned travelers quietly live by every single trip.